Hey guys, in this video I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into our 1E4 course, Chapter 8. This is the Caro-Kann chapter. I'm going to show you what we recommend here. This is a fun line. So I'm recommending E4, after C6, D4, and the Advance Variation. So this puts our pawns on nice solid center squares. We're grabbing a little bit of extra space. And in this chapter we cover both bishop to F5 and pawn to C5. So this is the main move, bishop to F5, pawn to C5, a little less common, but that's what we recommend from the black side. And that's a pretty fun variation to play for black. So let's see what happens after bishop to F5, the main move. In this position, we're recommending pawn to H4. And it's actually kind of trying to trap this bishop out on F5 if black is not careful. So there's ideas like G4, H5, F3. That bishop can very quickly run out of squares after H4. So here black tends to play pawn to H6 or pawn to H5. Let's show pawn to H5. I think this is the strongest move for black. And it's one where when we see H5, we can just go with a standard plan, which I also like. So our recommendation here is bishop to D3, offering the trade of light square bishops. And even though technically this is black's bad bishop, it's on the same color as all of black's pawns, we want this trade because we're going to play for the space advantage that we have in the center. So black will almost always take this. We're going to take back with the queen, and black will play E6. So now we see black has this very solid triangle formation with the bishop on the opposite color of their pawns, but we have this nice space advantage, smooth development, and this H5 pawn can become a weakness for black. So here our recommendation is bishop to G5, attacking the black queen, also offering to trade off our dark square bishop, which is our bad bishop, and this prevents black from queenside castling. So it has a few different jobs, bishop out to G5, and here we cover queen to B6 and bishop to E7 in the course. The main move is bishop to E7, and our recommendation is knight to F3, defending this bishop, getting all of our pieces out, nice smooth development. And after knight to D7 by black, that's the main move, we're recommending knight B to D2. And we see that black wants to queenside castle, right? They're getting the queen out next, they're going to castle over here, because it's not very easy to get this G8 knight developed and kingside castle while keeping the H5 pawn safe. So black wants to queenside castle, and we're playing knight B to D2, which frees our C pawn to move up to C4, or I should say it keeps that option available, and it's defended by the knight, whereas knight to C3 slows down our queenside pawn storm. Queen to B6 is the main move, and here we're going to castle kingside. If bishop takes G5 is ever played, we can take back with the knight, attacking the pawn on F7. And now, after queenside castle, we push ahead, pawn to C4, and what we're doing here is we're locking down the king side, right? So see how everything is locked up over here? The center is also locked up, but now we're starting a queenside pawn flank attack with pawn to C4, and this pawn storm is coming right at the black king. Pawn to F6, the most common move, trying to open up the king side so black can get some counterplay. But here we can drop the bishop back, putting an extra defender on E5, but also eyeing this B8 square with the bishop. F takes E, we can take back with the bishop, and look at how this bad bishop from earlier now becomes such a monster. It's on really nice diagonals pointing at that rook in the corner and the B8 square, which makes this black king a little bit weaker, having our bishop cut through there. So pretty much black should be playing knight takes E5 here. We can take back with knight takes E5, and now in this line, this is the main line of our Caro-Kann chapter, I wanted to go a little bit deeper and just show how this attack could unfold. Knight to H6, defending against our knight to F7 fork that we had available. But now we can play C5, attacking the queen and preparing B4, B5 next. Queen C7. Here we need to take one move to defend this pawn on H4. So we can play knight to F3. And after rook H to F8, pawn to B4. This is already a stockfish eval of 3.9. We haven't traded any pieces off that create a major imbalance, right? So we have knight versus bishop, but we're not down any material, we're not up any material. So there's no material imbalance here was my main point, but we're already up 3.9. That's an incredible advantage for the material being the same. And it's because we're going to play b5 next. We're going to get our f rook into the game, and we're going to push the a pawn up the board. We have a very strong queenside attack coming, and over here on the king side, there's really no counterplay yet for black. So this is going to be the main line of the Caro-Kann chapter of our 1e4 course. Now let's go back and look at 3c5, because I bet you guys are wondering, if you're already an owner of our Caro-Kann course from the black side, you're probably wondering, Matt, what do you recommend against 3c5? Knowing that we play that from the black side of the Caro-Kann course, I'm recommending 4 knight to f3. This is the third most popular move at the club level. But what we're going to try to do is win the c5 pawn in a lot of cases, if black allows it, and then we try to hold on to that extra pawn. So let's look at the main move first. Knight to c6, and in this case we're playing d takes c, grabbing the pawn, and that bishop on f8 is not ready to capture back yet on c5 because of this e7 pawn blocking it. So now bishop to g4 is the main move, pinning this knight on f3. And here we're recommending pawn to c3. This prepares the move pawn to b4, and it also stops black from playing d4. So really nice move, pawn to c3. It looks so subtle. What is the pawn doing on c3? Two very nice tasks, guarding b4 and guarding the d4 square. So now the main move is pawn to e6. Knight takes e5 there actually loses. And there's a little tactic. I'll pause for a second, see if you can find it. Knight takes e5 loses to a very nice tactic. And this is a theme that you may have seen before in other tactics puzzles. Okay, so the answer, if knight takes e5, we can actually play knight takes e5 back. And if bishop takes d1, bishop to b5 check. White is completely winning because black has to block with the queen. The queen gets captured, and we're winning the bishop on d1 next. So we still have 4 minor pieces. Black only has 2. They may win 1 back. We're still completely winning. So after c3, we have e6 shown in the course. And in this position, I'm recommending bishop to e3. Pawn to b4 is also playable, but this is going to be a little bit more accurate. We're developing the bishop and defending our weak pawn on c5. So I really like this move. After bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, black can try to win the pawn, knight takes e5. And at this point, we have bishop to b5 check. And what's going to happen here is we're going to be able to take advantage of this bishop pair by opening up the center with pawn to c4. So again, we just talked about the bishop pair. When you have the bishop pair, you really want a wide open position. Get those bishops used to their fullest potential, get them on open diagonals, not blocked by any pawns. That's why we're playing c4. And this king is still on e8 with a bishop on f8 and a knight on g8, all getting in the way of castling. After knight to f6, we can now play knight to c3, and we're up 2.6 according to Stockfish. And our plan is to queenside castle, play c takes d5, open up the center, activate the bishop pair, play with the initiative. This is going to be a really fun game for us. All right, so now let's look at exactly where the two repertoires converge. So this is the Caro-Kann repertoire from the black side and our e4 repertoire against the Caro from the white side. It's c takes d4, and I'm recommending queen takes d4 for white. So we weren't able to win that pawn on c5, but we're creating this different scenario where our e5 pawn gives us a little extra space, and we're going to use the queen to try to be a nuisance over here on the king side. After knight to c6, we can park the queen on f4, and we're playing with about a 0.3 Stockfish advantage here. So the reason I like to give the Stockfish evals is just to give you an idea of where the position sits. Do you have a large advantage? Is it close to equal? Keeping a constant awareness of how large your advantage is can help you make practical decisions during your games. So we have a very slight advantage here, and it's due to just having a little bit more space. After pawn to e6, I'm recommending knight to c3, knight e7, and now bishop to d3. So look at how all of these pieces are developed out on the third rank. The d3 bishop points at h7, which could be a nice potential attack. And I'm actually thinking of playing h4 and castling queenside soon. So that's kind of the plan here, but we want to see what black does before we commit. Knight g6, we can drop the queen back to g3, nice and safe. Now the main move here is bishop to b4. That's a small mistake, but it's the main move at club level. And we can meet this with pawn to h4, threatening pawn to h5. And this is going to be a 2-point advantage according to Stockfish. And in this position, we can actually play king to f1 or kingside castle. So after h4, the king is going this direction. The other way you can play this, though, and I mentioned this in the course notes, you could play bishop to d2. This is also going to be close to a 2-point advantage. The plan here is because the bishop guards the knight on c3, there's no doubling of the pawns after bishop takes c3, and you can queenside castle in that case and reroute the knight c3 to e2 out to f4 and try to loosen up black's kingside that way. So I leave you with 2 plans in this line. h4 is my preference, but I also think that this bishop to d2 line is also very good, followed by queenside castling. Alright guys, so that's 3 lines out of 10 from our 1e4 course, Caro-Kann chapter. This course is going to come out in the first week in January. It'll be available for pre-order at first at a discounted price. That'll come with a full PGN. And then Jesse and I are going to be recording videos like we've done for all of our other courses. And as those are recorded, they will be published immediately after. And those will trickle out, and hopefully we will have them finished probably in January, if not into February. But we tend to prioritize recording those videos once we have a PGN ready for the course. So stay tuned. The 1e4 course is going to be ready soon. I'm very excited about it. Jesse has already been playtesting it, and he keeps texting me saying that he loves the attacking positions in the Scotch against 1e5. This is the Caro-Kann chapter. So thanks for watching, and I think we will probably have a couple little more teasers coming out soon for the e4 course.